Hi, Joy. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Joy, you started your journey as an artist writing epitaphs.
That's right. I was at an art school. It was late 70s, and they didn't appreciate my artistic realism. They were in New Zealand and like the rest of the world, they were basically doing a lot of abstract. And they told me I was too anal and too het up in detail and to loosen up. They even suggested I see a psychiatrist and work out why was the reason I was such a control freak. And I couldn't loosen up. I was 19. It's all I wanted to do. It was hard to get into this art school. It was the main one in New Zealand. It was the Elam School of Art in Auckland. And I'd sent a portfolio. I got accepted. And then they wanted me to loosen up. And I couldn't. It wasn't my time. I was very, very detailed. And I know now I just use color and I have a lot of fun now. But I couldn't do it at 19. So I reluctantly went off, deciding, well, I'd be better suited in the commercial art world. They'd appreciate my technical skills. I'd already wasted the year, as in they all start in New Zealand in January, February, and it was like I'd lasted about a month after being ridiculed and laughed at this art school, and I took it really personally. It really hurt, so I decided I didn't want to wait another year. So I saw this job as an artist in a memorial headstone company. It sounded strange, but they wanted someone to increase the artwork on the side of these beautiful big headstones to memorialize. Sometimes it was kids doing sport, mostly it was flowers, national flowers. A lot of islanders here love really big headstones and would really get a lot of money together and do that. I went there, I made lots of inroads, which I've noticed years and years later, like decades later, they're still using my transfers that I made up. So as limited as it was to do artwork on headstones, I did that. And I also had to be very, very precise on lettering. So that was a real discipline. And I became a good sign writer. Not that I wanted to be, but that was part of it. And I was 19, I got on the front page of our newspaper in New Zealand because I was the first woman/girl at the time to do the V-cut incision, which was like chiseling as opposed to sandblasting headstones. There was a lot of old school. I was under the tutelage of two very old men that told me that I could do Times Roman for 2 years, and then after 2 years I could go to another font. And it was a bit like that. But they trained me wonderfully, and it was a lot of, in retrospect, it was good discipline. The interesting thing is at the end of my career at 65, I'm working in a cemetery. My last job, which has been like the last 4 years, as my last two big jobs have been in cemeteries. So I came full circle. It was really interesting.
Your journey has been a very long, winding road.
Absolutely. And I've experienced every medium you could possibly experience. So I remember someone giving me advice when I was young as an artist to stick to one medium and get good at it, and I'd be recognized and not go off on tangents. And I did exactly the opposite. So I was never going to be known as a certain look. I was not, that's a Joy Bell there. I was interested in developing, and initially, you never know what you're doing when you're young. You don't know, art is a wonderful thing and very exciting, but I was limited by also wanting to travel and make money. There was one other thing I thought I could do when I was young. There was quite a few hippies around at the time. I could go off on these communes. You go to a rural area in New Zealand, well known was the Coromandel. We had the most potters per capita in the world. We had the most leather workers. There was a lot of options to be alternative in the late 70s. And I wanted to make money and travel. So that wasn't a choice to be made for me. I wanted to make money and travel. So I went that path. Although I was quite inclined to be a hippie, I was definitely more inclined to be to make money and be a capitalist, I think.
You do recycle and upcycle pretty much everything you can get your hands on.
Yeah, that wasn't to save the world. That was just really, when I think of what I've done, I've been an artist, then an antique dealer, then an artist. And during the antique dealing phase, which was 12 years, and you keep an absolute hoard of stuff in case you need a part for something. So you have boxes and boxes. And when I stopped being an antique dealer, I came to my home in the country 30 years ago, where I am now, with 88 boxes of what I would term crap stock. We called it NCV, no commercial value, and in it was bric-a-brac, tiles, glass, EPNS, brassware. It went on. And I was haunted by these 88 boxes because I wanted a clean break, and I didn't want to carry my past with me, and I wanted to start afresh. So I left them on the roadside, 88 boxes on the roadside, and hoped someone would steal them. And I went back 2 weeks later and they were still there. Nobody took them. And I thought I'd better clean them up and bring them with me. So I tempted fate. And that's really what started me, was a set of steps going up to a herb garden where I thought I could probably embed some old china, some old tiles, and make them actually more secure, just bulk up these cement steps I was making. I suddenly thought, oh, there's those boxes of stuff. And I went and got the china, the tiles, and I broke them up. I did it all wrong as a mosaic artist. I embedded them into concrete as opposed to using the concrete as a substructure and using concrete adhesive and gluing them to the top and flattening them out that way. So I didn't know what I was doing, but it did start me off on my mosaic journey, which was probably my biggest journey. And that was a total accident. And now I look in the shed and of those 88 boxes, and they really saved my life, really, as to the what I've been able to do with those 88 boxes rather than throw them away.
Your house is part heritage house, part museum, part gallery, a lot of things.
Yes, I came with the money to buy a normal, good family home, and I saw what is not a good family home, because it's a one-room Victorian church, 1886. It's tiny. It's got two lean-tos, which are like wings, which make it livable, but it's still very, very small. And I love it now because I'm on my own with my dogs here, my two dogs. So it suits me perfectly now, but it was a bit of a challenge for the kids to grow up in. They did their whole lives here, and they never liked it till they realized their friends thought it was wonderful. I also came from a 5-bedroom villa with a 12-foot stud and all these huge antiques, and I came to this place that had really no walls, no display at all. So I had to downsize my antique, so it has always looked a bit tight, a bit overwhelming. I did have an auntie who used to come here, and she said it made her feel ill when she walked in. So it's fairly, it's a well-organized, my past being antiques. I do appreciate antiques, but mostly from an artistic point of view, and the workmanship and the craftsmanship. I think anything old is generally better made. So I'm a Puritan as it comes to antiques. I do love them, but once I finished my antique shop 30 years ago, I've had no desire, and I don't think I've walked into one antique shop since. It was like the end of. I loved it. I had what I had, which was really too much. I was tripping over the stuff. I wasn't ever wanting to add one more thing to my collection. And there's a few collections going on. But it's mostly an appreciation for the workmanship.
How did you come up with the idea of doing mosaics?
It was that stone steps to the herbs in the garden that I used to trip over. I used to be mid-meal, thought I'd grab some herbs, run out and trip over. So I made these steps so I didn't trip over. And at that stage, I never knew people did mosaics. I didn't know that there was books. There was even cruise ships taking you on mosaic cruises. I had no idea that there was I knew about lead lights and people learning how to do stained glass, but I didn't know people were doing workshops on mosaics, and I thought that was an ancient art form that was finished. I really had no idea there was a big resurgence. And I did my steps, and I thought, oh, well, I've got 88 boxes of stuff. So I started making things in the garden, and I didn't start small. I didn't do terracotta pots or pavers. I did couches and large things. And to me, I just had to have the money to afford the adhesive, the good quality adhesive. So it started in the garden. Then a few people would say, wow, that they're amazing. And then I had a local paper, a small paper, come round and feature me as in my garden. And then from my garden and the couches and the outside displays, I think if you practice in your garden, you become aware of substructures and what will last forever, what will remain permanent, and you learn at your own place. And then I got council jobs. I had the council approach me to do what ended up being huge, large scale commissions, contracts involving all sorts of cranes and machinery and scaffolding, and it went way beyond me, to the point I would turn up and they would say to me, where's your team? And I said, I haven't got one, it's just me. And they would say, well, haven't you got anyone to help you? So I might go and get another artist, a potter or someone that was wanted a bit of work, but other than that, it was just me. So my last two jobs, one took 2 years and the other it's still going at 4 years, but will probably take 6 years to complete. I worry that I'll die before it's completed. Not that I'm ready to die, but, they got bigger and bigger. I felt like I was getting smaller and smaller, as in older, Yeah, they started at 10 months long jobs, and I do them in summer or a summer job, and they got big. So really the demand for my mosaic work was always really, it was big works, and I really wanted to get out of it, and I've been working my way out of it. I'm practically retired now.
You keep saying that you're retired, that it's the end of your career.
Oh, I'm mad. Everyone around me knows, and I will work till any hour. I don't care about my body. I just keep going. If I'm uncomfortable or I'm in pain, and I'm on the floor and I'm in a funny position, I just laugh about it. I just, what my brain wants to do and what my body can do is it's quite dangerous. I'm obviously careful up ladders now and stuff, but whoa, yeah, my body's just a vessel to get to where I want my brain to make things. I've disregarded my body quite a bit, as in I should have looked after myself better, but the brain wanted to do things, so I followed it.
You raised your children as an artist. Was this a great influence for them?
We were generally very poor. I made a living out of art, and of course that's not normally, for me it wasn't a wage at the end of the week. It wasn't bills to be paid all the time. I often wished I had a job where I could work and just not worry about the next payment coming in. I think what it made them realize was how frugal I was and how I managed to survive without any benefits, without any support. It was just the art. The only reason I could do that was I made money in the antique business for 12 years. It was the good years before things changed in the antique business here, and it was between 1983 and 95, and they were the good years in antiques. It was before online, our business here as Trade Me or eBay or any of those things were just coming in. So you had to have a shop to survive. I had a shop, I made the money, and I ended up freehold. So when I moved and had the two kids. Basically, ended up on my own very quickly with a baby and a toddler. They're very close together in age, 13 months apart. I only survived off my art really because I was freehold. If I'd had to pay rent or a mortgage, I do believe I'd have given up on the art. So I was lucky to have that, a nice place to live, be it that it was small. We had land, we had animals. We always, when I say we always had food, really, I've looked in the fridge sometimes with the kids and it was completely empty, and I'd make it a game. I'd say to the kids, let's make pancakes. We've got flour in the pantry. Let's use up everything we've got. They know a lot on food or good stuff. They learnt that they both are very good with money. It's the best part of the art really, was to teach them. And they're very proud of me. They're very proud when I achieve what I did, and we'd all celebrate. And I am a believer in, no matter how frugal you are, it's really important to enjoy. We'd celebrate. We'd go out and, splurge. So it was splurge and frugal, but I've not ever been miserable, but, it's taught them a lot about money. I'd say buy something really good, save up and buy it really good. Just don't waste the money all the time,
Is this your frugal life that inspired you to do collage?
I think the frugality probably feeds into the recycling too. Never waste anything. And so what happened with the decoupage, I had an idea about the antique shop, what people really loved and what, say, 10 women would want instead of one lady coming in and saying, I love that vase. I learnt what people really like, and I've always loved Victorian images. So my love is Art Nouveau Victoriana, and I heralded back to that and waded through a lot of images of which I thought were stupendous, beautiful artists, mostly botanical drawings and flora and beasties and birds and beautiful art. And I used those images and made reverse decoupage gilded vases. So I would gild them from behind. All the work was inside the vase. Had to make sure I could get my hand inside the vase. And I really had a market for them. And although the mosaics were coming in, the first thing I did was decoupage. I think the kids were really brought up in the early days on decoupage vases, which were really popular. And I think I was aided by my time with the antique shop, realizing what people really wanted to buy. So they were always geared towards selling them. I'd make pretty and beautiful vases as opposed to anything I wanted to. So that was just to make money to get the kids food on the table.
What is about the Victorian era that you liked most?
Everything. And I do live that way. So when you walk in my house, it's pretty obvious where my taste lies. Heavy velvets, maroon colors, the richness. And I do believe, if I was to have persevered academically with art and getting an art degree, I would have probably done a thesis on the pre-Raphaelites. So it was always the long hair, the organic nature, the tendrils, the vines, I could just keep going on. A lot of people don't like that. It's way too heavy and way too overdone. But that's where my taste lied. And I would love to have lived in that era. That's where my taste is. It's absolutely right there.
Your folk taxidermy, does it come from you recycling fabric, or is it a statement?
There's not many statements in me. I'm very non-politically correct. And because I live rurally now, the farmers around me, I'd go for walks with the dogs and I'd find skulls, and they'd say, oh, they trap a lot of animals to keep our native wildlife safe in New Zealand. So all the muscoids, they'd get me ferrets and weasels and stoats that they hated here. The possums are much maligned here for killing all the our native trees mostly. And they, it's really sad. I'm a real animal lover. I've been involved a lot in bird rescue and dog rescue, and to some degree horse rescue. I adore animals. So it's coming. I love animals. That frugal bit of me wants to keep a bit of the dead animal, like they did in Victorian times. So they would make an inkwell or a pincushion out of a hoof, or they would get bits. I think they would only do it to their favourites. They cut off the tail and mount it on a shield and put it on the wall. I have no ick factor in picking up a skull and cleaning it out. I think it's beautiful, which is sort of weird. A lady just bought me 42 skulls the other day. She promised me a skull, and she just bought me a truckload, and she'd asked everyone around her had they had any skulls. I also know that other people don't like taxidermy, but when I was in the antique shop, I would have to fix taxidermy. We get some Victorian taxidermy, and bits would be falling off. And there was always money in taxidermy, as much as a lot of people don't like it. The people that do like it will pay a lot for it. And it's the same now. That if I was to sell real taxidermy, it would be a good living, but I don't want to make a living doing that. But I had to learn it myself. I learned it through YouTube videos, how to do taxidermy and how to tan skins. I particularly like tanning skins because they're wasted anyway. The farmers here, when they kill a steer or for meat, they will get we have mostly, you've got home kill butchers. They come to the property, they kill the animal, they shoot it, they hang it up, they skin it, and they make you, before they arrive, dig a big hole to put the legs, the head, and the skin in the hole. And it's such a waste to me to put the skin in the hole, because we don't have many tanneries here. It's not a big thing. They used to, but they don't do that anymore. They don't bother getting the hide skinned. So if they've got a really good looking cow, like really cool tricolour, black, brown, white, lovely, I will do a cow. I'll go and pick it up. They'll tell the home kill butcher to leave it over the fence for me. I'll go and pick it up, all slippy, slaggy, and I'll just love saving it. And it will take me days to do a cow. It's much easier to do small animals, much easier on your wrists, because there's so much defleshing, so much scraping. Cows are really hard for me at my age. But yeah, skin. I'll then get a goat or a sheep. The goats I could dye and make look like a dog very easily. I could make it look like a fox terrier. So from one goat, I could make a dog. That sounds crazy, but my desire is to do dogs' heads. I have the skulls. I've got lots of dog skulls, but I take a mold off the dog skull, so that the person is not getting any bit of animal, except I will tell them it's a goat that got culled, because they don't want goats here in the bush. They kill the bush. There's a lot of feral goats, so they're not thought of as very highly. So the taxidermy is a funny one, and I also love the idea of making a complete dog's head out of nothing that's animal, that is then using wool. And I really love the idea of fooling someone and shocking people that I've actually taxidermied a dog's head, to make it that real. So that's the challenge to me, is to again go into total realism of the dog's head to make it look real. And that's something in New Zealand they never really do. We don't ever keep our dogs or cats, like I've seen in America. They freeze dry them, or they have methods of giving you back your animal, stuffed or unstuffed, or soft mounted, or the old classic mount. They don't do that here. It's not culturally I can't imagine everyone walking into a house and seeing someone with their beloved stuffed dog's head on the wall, but that's what I want to do. And to do that, I know I can't stuff my dog's head, so I'll do it from scratch.
You work with plaster, latex, foam, cement. How do you protect yourself?
I don't really. I don't care. I just want to do it. So, yes, my daughter's a doctor and she keeps telling me off, for inhaling, chemicals and things. A lot of the processes I use are old school, so that they are, some of them are natural. You know how we've gone from natural to chemicals and back to natural. So I use a lot of salt. I use a lot of corrosive in amounts that you wouldn't want it to be. But I do veer away from chemicals because I don't like them. The concrete is a hard one because I'll put a mask on, but I also always use white concrete so I can color the concrete. So to use white concrete, you then have to use silica sand, not beige sand. Otherwise you kill the color a bit. So I'm using silica sand, and so that's a really dangerous. So I know where the most dangerous things are, and I'm careful. But I'm likely, instead of using a respirator, I'm more likely to put a tea towel around my face and tie it off, or put my jumper over, and I'm anything to get the job done. I am totally motivated to doing the work, and so far I can still breathe, so it's all good. I don't care enough.
For many years, you have done several tutorials on your YouTube channel. Then you kind of stopped. People are asking what's happening. Is everything okay?
Well, the problem is I'm technophobic and I don't have a mobile phone. And that's just a personal preference, as I don't want to be accountable for my time. I want to go in the studio and lose time. I don't want to be called back into reality much. So I have made an effort to be reclusive, and I keep like four or seven friends really close to me and family, and I have limited access to myself or people knowing where I'm at and what I'm doing. When it came to lockdown, I went from living alone to having like 7 people around me, and lots of baking and lots of food, and it became like a big party to me. Lockdown, I loved it because I was going to be in the studio and we closed the gate and nobody came around. That was the perfect situation for me. The change was having so many people around me, and of course they all had mobile phones and they all said, let's make some videos, Mum. So that happened quite organically. I then loved sharing what I did, and I loved responses, comments of, I think it was really lovely waking up in New Zealand and realizing you've got a comment from Russia or Canada or all around the world. It was amazing to me to share the art and what I'd learnt. And I would love to save people making the mistakes I had to do to learn what I did. I had used YouTube videos myself and learnt things, so I wanted to share what I'd learnt, so it was a big circle. So I love doing that. Then I'm on my own, and next door to me on my top paddock I have a cottage with my son, daughter-in-law, and what is now 2 children. But the first little boy, who's 5, he was born with with liver failure, and he's had a liver transplant, and that coincided with the video stopping. Was the health of little Eli. Just to there was so many hospital visits through his life, but it really cranked up around about the transplant's now a year and a half ago. I keep promising to get back to it, and I will. But then they had another baby, and that baby's 3 months old now. So it became for me to ask her to come over and video me doing my art tutorials. It will happen, and I hope people are patient, because I would love to get back to it. And I have so many ideas, and it did seem to just stop dead. I had the next video in mind. I always had the next video. There's heaps of videos in my head. heaps of things I could share, and really, really lovely feedback and encouragement. So all of that's in place, bar the time of the only one left that could do it. She now has a 5-year-old that's just going off to school, just starting, and a 3-month-old. You know, it's busy. It's got really busy from being very quiet. So that's what happened.
What happens in your studio these days?
I go up there. It's a beautiful studio. It's on top of 3 big sheds. It's my happy place. As far as I'm concerned, I just like to lock the door, throw away the key, and be like Rapunzel, just stuck there forever. I never tire of it. There's always huge amount of variation of projects going on, and I do bounce from one to the other, so I never get bored. I never get sick of it. I'm over-resourced. I have sheds full of not only those old 88 boxes of old stock from the shop, but I have been given and I have collected and hoarded a massive amount of resources, material to do a variety of different mediums, and I know I can't do it all. I now realize at 65 I'll die before I do all my ideas. So I'm now trying to do my favorite ideas, my best ideas, and using all my best materials. So I'm in a great place right now of doing all the good stuff. And my general idea is to get away from the concrete, stop using, I make clay into concrete forms and all the molds in between, which my videos describe, but I really want to go full on into textiles. I want to stop handling all that other stuff, the concrete, the saws that make all the mosaics very realistic. I want to not use machinery. I want to sit there in the quiet with the materials that I've got masses of alpaca wool underneath the studio and the sheds. I've got so much felting I want to do, so much rug hooking I want to do, and it all involves lovely, beautiful material. I call beautiful material either wool, cotton, silk, anything that goes through the fingers, and I don't like handling anything artificial or, I suppose, synthetic materials. So I've got an amazing hoard of beautiful materials that I want to make beautiful things out of. I suppose generally in my head I've got a chronology of how it started and how the path had its own way. It becomes either a necessity of making money and making art that you know you can sell, or be more experimental in nature and discovering what you'd really like to do with the art and where it will go, which is the exciting bit. It's never really exciting making art that you know will sell, because you've already sold one, so you'll make one similar. Reproducing. Rosie's just right here. If you want to meet Rosie, she's just walked in.
Hi, Rosie.
Hello. I'll let you guys keep going, but nice to see you online.
Would you like to say a few words about your mom? What's it like to be the daughter of an artist?
Well, I mean, initially growing up as a young kid, it was like, oh gosh, I don't want to invite anyone over. The house there's so much stuff. It's old, it's cold, but it is so special. And I think as I've grown older and, gone to uni and quite an adult myself now, I feel so lucky. Mum is an extremely special person, on top of the home and everything. So I would be so boring without her. Yeah.
What was it like to grow up with those glass panels?
Oh, it is so beautiful and calming out here. This area before Mum did all of it was really boring and quite drab, and it really extended what was a tiny house for all of us. And I just wish I could create something like that. I don't know how Mum comes up with all these things, but I'm just in awe of her, and I would love her to get her hands into one of my own properties one day.
Hey, you can't see it with the light coming through. The necessity of building the glass room was I had nowhere to sit, and it was actually like building a room. And it's a wonderful feeling as an artist to build or make something that you is really tangible, and you can sit there and look at it and love it. It's not just pretty; it's fit for purpose. And
It's practical.
I've always been very involved in the word fit for purpose because as an antique, oriented person, but someone that they made things in the old days to last. And for the mosaic, for all the councils to hire me, I was very adamant that they liked mosaics because they were low maintenance and high durability. And for me to think of a mosaic to last possibly centuries, hundreds of years beyond my life, the permanence, I really get off on the permanence of mosaics. But generally speaking, even around the house, there's no point in doing something unless it's going to last. Do it properly or don't do it. And fit for purpose is something I say all the time. What do you people ask me for a piece of art, well, where do you want it to be in? In New Zealand, they've got very strong sun. You really wouldn't want to put something beautiful if it's going to fade in a window. A lot of the modern houses are all windows, so it's like, it's, I've always got that in mind. And to that end, can you clean it? Can you take it home and, can it still look beautiful? There's no point having anything beautiful if it starts decaying or, you can't look after it. I'm not into art like stuff that won't last. I love that durability. Yeah.
How can people find you? You are on YouTube. Your website is very easy to find. However, can they come, for example, can they show up at your house and visit?
Well, what's happened is from being in the local paper, I then wrote a book about mosaics, and then I went pretty much to quite a few countries chasing the idea of mosaics and what other countries were doing. I realized in America particularly they were the commercial use of mosaics was for cultural and historical panels, so that when you visited a town it would display what sort of heritage that town had. So that became, when I came back to New Zealand, very much where I've headed and why the council love my jobs, because you could call them sort of touristy, but that's what they wanted. They wanted a display of what was on offer in that town. That was that, but I luckily have always had the same name, so I've never changed my name. It's been Joy Bell. So if people had heard about the Joy Bell, and I would have been probably one of the most known mosaic artists in New Zealand, because it's so small really, but they could find me by just remembering Joy Bell. So it's Joy Bell everything, my email, my YouTube channel, my everything's just Joy Bell Art. I've had a lot of people visit the house and garden. I ended up being requested to have bus tours, of which I didn't ask for, but there was a big demand for mainly older people to be taken around. They go and have lunch somewhere, they visit 3 nice sites. They're very, very appreciative of being shown around and having things explained and sharing what you do and let into your world. There's a big market for that, and there is certainly money for these bus tours to take place. That happened all through my developmental phase of what I was doing. I never asked for it. Everyone was, it was word of mouth. One bus tour did it, then they told others. They all want new venues to look at. That became a thing. And then, I do have people come. They generally make an appointment. I'm generally very receptive. I love sharing. So that's part of the YouTube tutorials, is just sharing. I think life is very short in general, and if we don't share, I've had people say to me, why do you just give away your secrets? Why wouldn't you? Life is so short. Why wouldn't you not share what you've learned? I don't see holding on to any of that as any benefit to you, or it's silly. Hold on to your secrets? No, share them. Most people couldn't be bothered doing it anyway. And a lot of it, you have to have some talent before you start. I have found with the YouTube channels, they do want to only do the easy things. What I see is challenging. They've not got no interest in the concrete. They've got no interest in making moles. And what I'm interested in is probably, a lot different than what people are interested in seeing on YouTube videos. They want it to be achievable, and things are achievable, but you do have a lot of hit and misses before you cut out the mistakes.
Well, your art does look, a lot of it looks a bit like science.
Yeah, it is. It's making, and I see builders that build houses as being artistic, because I mean, you put your heart and soul into something. It's very, it's very real. I admire anyone that does a good job. I don't even think of myself as an artist, although I probably am. But I'd be more appreciative of the term, craftsman, because that's just someone who cares and tries their hardest, and yeah, heart and soul is everything, because that's what you transfer. I also see that I do have friends that are other artists, and that's really great. I don't think I could collaborate very well. I don't know if I could. I've tried to do. I'm not very good with children either, like doing workshops with kids. I've got no interest in that. There's things I don't do well. I wouldn't be a good teacher, really, but I do like sharing on the YouTube videos. It is, I guess a lot of things are ironic in life. I don't think I really knew the path I was going on. I didn't think I would get stuck on concrete, for example. I mean, I love concrete. I see concrete as magic. I see it as instant stone and amazing. You can get white concrete, flick a bit of black or rose color in, and you've got what looks like marble or a beautiful, you can simulate these things, and to do it to me is, I still get wonderment every time I take off a mold and see what's inside. I thought, wow, that's amazing. It's amazing how someone came up with the idea of cement with lime and stuff. It's just incredible to me. But I would never have got involved in concrete unless it was for that cemetery job, which took me, a couple of years to make all, hundreds and hundreds of molds. I had to learn how to make a mold, and I learned through YouTube videos. Simply, it was that simple. I then went and made something beautiful. But then I forgot about it for a while. Then I went back to making items out of clay, and rather than do the normal thing, which was like my range of wally birds I've made and my dodo birds, and that's from being in bird rescue and loving birds. I then, instead of what a normal person doing clay would do, which was put it in a kiln, I then made a mold of it, and then I can make 6 or 10. I'm not interested in making garden ornaments and selling 100. I'm just interested in keeping 1 or 2 and giving a couple to friends and maybe selling a couple. To me, that's practical. I'm happy, my friends are happy, and I get some money. Why would you make 1 if you could make 6? So there's a practicality which would have probably come from having a shop and being an antique dealer and wishing you could get 6 from a store instead of having to scrounge around and go searching and get 1 item, because in the antique business that's the problem. There aren't 20 in a storehouse or a warehouse somewhere. You can't keep your stock coming on that basis. You have to go and find it, restore it, present it.
Have you come up with an epitaph for you?
Probably. Okay, so when I was 19 and started in the antique business, I made my own headstone. My mother's been Irish, wouldn't let it in the house. She was very superstitious. She was disgusted that I'd made a headstone at 19. And I said, well, look, I could maybe, it was there. I could make it. I'd made it out of granite. There was a granite slab. I made my headstone. It's in the garden now. It's a bit of a joke. But Yeah, no, my epitaph was, do you want to know what my epitaph says? It's done in Old English. It's done in scrawly writing, which is not particularly Times Roman, but a bit of, wiggly wogglies and a bit of loops. And it says, "Here lies the body of Joy Bell, hard working and honest until she fell, who lived to the age of 110 and gave to worms what she refused to men. Rest in peace." So that's the joke. Probably the biggest joke in my life is the avoidance of men after I had a toddler and a baby. I've had a problem with relating intimately with someone, in that generally my mind, when I'm conversing with them, ends up probably thinking and wondering what I'm going to do tomorrow with art. So nothing has ever been as stimulating to me as thinking about what I'm going to do. So I have always rather had more satisfaction from doing art than talking to someone. So I have lived alone, and I've gloriously lived alone, because I've realized that I have never been diluted by someone else living with me or being with me. My house is everything I want it to be, and I've never had to ask permission to go over the top with whatever I've done. I've never said, "Do you think this is a good idea?" or "How's your taste in this?" I've never had to consider anyone but myself. Yeah, I really feel like I would have been a different person if I had been married or with someone, and I've been alone for many, many years, and I think I would be less of myself and I'd be more normal. And I much prefer being who I am, and not, I've never compromised anything I've ever done. It's always been, what do I want to do? And I've done it if I thought I could do it, and I've done it well. I also have always thought that if I was if I was really on a roll in the studio and having heaps of fun and finally getting something done, and it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and someone said, "Don't you think it's time to come to bed, dear?" It was never part of my life. I just continued on. And when the kids were little, sometimes I started work when they went to bed at 7:30 at night. I would start a whole day's work then, and work probably at least 2 or 3 nights a week till 3 a.m. and still get up at 7:30 in the morning and set them off to school and whatever. But when they were before school, it was only me. I had no one to help, and I had no parental help either. So, I managed, and I did well. I also think having been a single mum to 2 kids is it is hard time-wise, and I've always jealously guarded my time since they left home. I've used it wisely and made the most of it, because it's a wonderful thing hitting 65 and thinking I can retire from the jobs and do exactly what I want to do, with no commissions, no demands on what someone wants from me with a commission or a contract. And what does Joy want to do today? It's a wonderful feeling to go up in the studio and think, what does Joy want to do today? And have so many resources on hand to, do anything I want. One of the photos you have of the mushrooms was Rosie saying to me 3 weeks ago for her birthday, I said, "What would you like?" She said, "I've got a big white wall, and I would like nothing better than a really large wall hanging, a rug hooking of psychedelic mushrooms, Mum." And I said, "Oh, wow, that sounds like fun. Lots of colour, saturated in colour." And I've spent the last 3-4 weeks rug hooking massive amounts of solid colours into the magic mushrooms, or whatever you'd call them. We call them shrooms. And listening to podcasts of the death cap mushrooms in Australia, and the 3 murders, or the nearly 4 murders that happened. And that was resolved, and she was found guilty about 2 weeks ago. So all the time I'm rug hooking this rather large, it's yet to be tightened over the hoop that I have. I've got a metal hoop and it's very large. It'll look great on a white wall. I haven't finished it, as in secured it to the hoop yet, but all the time I'm doing these magic mushrooms and thinking, oh my God, death cap mushrooms, how terrible to have them in a beef Wellington and die in such a horrendous way. And it was horrendous. They had liver transplants and everything to try and keep them alive, and it was not successful. It was deadly. So yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm up in my studio, and most of them are crime related. I am making very pretty things and very lovely things, or sometimes rather unusual things, and listening to a lot of crime, which is my favorite thing. Yeah, you know, you're hearing terrible things and you're just smiling away, making art. It's quite weird. But yeah, those are the moments I like. Yeah. That and spoiling animals and having lots of animals around me. The kids have always known. One of the greatest sayings in my house when the kids were growing up was, I'd say, save your tears for dead animals. And I meant it. You know, we had a lot of animals. They would occasionally, come into misadventure. So, save your tears, save them for dead animals. Like, I was a terribly, I'd say old school, but some would say hard-ass parent, and I was the only one. And it, never involved anything physical or mentally, psychologically damaging. I never did that. I was very careful. I always thought if you brought your kids out wrong, it'd come back to bite you in the butt. You know, it would do the best you can with what you've got at the time you had it, and that's all you can do. But if you do the best you could, you'll never have any regrets if they grew up terrible, because you just did the best you could. So, otherwise, whoa, anything could happen. Yeah. The weirdest feeling I probably have is that rather than have someone with me to share good moments, I would rather be alone and doing art. I would rather that 20 times over. Art gives me everything. It gives me satisfaction. I mean, gosh, if my fingers stopped working, it would be a terrible thing. I can't even imagine it. Maybe I'd just watch YouTube videos non-stop of other people doing art. But I really have found everything I want. Everything has been given. Art is everything to me. I live and breathe it. I just feel it. I can't go long without doing it. It's a compulsion, and maybe I'm an addictive personality that's found solace and contentment. I can be very still. I can be very centered. And I can talk to people and have friends, but after, say, 2 hours, I get bored. I want to leave. If there's a party, I'm a bit of a party pooper. It's lovely for a short time, but and the kids know me well, and my friends know me well, so they understand where I'm at. But I'm always scheming and dreaming. I'm always, and I think probably the weirdest thing about me is the how I've bounce from medium to medium, but there's been a reason for it. The reason when the kids were growing up is I had to make art I knew would sell, so I was doing it to sell. And then with the bigger commissions, it just became, and the cemetery thing is just really weird, and I've ended up, my last job as I leave my lifetime of art, as in commercial, making money, getting contracts, it'll be the butterfly pathway. That's the job I'm still doing. It was nearly 100 meters long. It took me a summer to make the path, and then I'm now filling it with 93 stillborn baby graves, memorials. So it's a really sad note to end my career on, but it's very uplifting because every parent that creates a butterfly with me is happy. So it's very sad, and it's really strange for me to think that my last income thread is from stillborn babies. It's a very strange world, and art is a very strange, where it will take you is very strange. I never designed this pathway for my art to go down. But it's an interesting life, and I don't draw or paint, but I've to get the big commissions, I've had to make proposals that were very close to what would be achieved in the mosaic art form. So I'm very good at drawing and painting, but I sometimes wonder if I'd been a painter, what would I have done? Where would it have ended? If I'd had the advice as a young person to stick to one medium and do it well so I could be recognized, and therefore being recognized would mean that your name would be associated with a style and therefore more recognizable, and I could have become well known or famous, that never appealed anyway, and never would do. I only want to make what I want to make, and when I look back, I know where it's coming from, and it initially is the love of animals, and then I make things that look like an animal, and then people freak out and think it's not coming from a place necessarily of loving an animal, but I do. And the kids know that. They know that they probably come second to some of the dogs I've had in my life. That I don't really mean that. That they know I'm a great animal lover. And a great pre-Raphaelite lover. Yes, so I'm glad you found me. I'm glad you found the videos, and that's the only hope I have, and I will get back to it. And I do get asked all the time, what's happened to you? I hope you're all right. And I feel sad that that they're worried that I've fallen off the ends of the earth. Yeah. And I'm here, and I'm making art and enjoying it. And I am surrounded by it in my home. I'm lucky enough to live in it. Live in the art, yeah. So it's not like making a living out of art. It's just everywhere. Yeah, I can't think of art as an add-on. I can't think of civilization being without it. I just it's the place in your head that's the nice place. Yeah, it's a lovely place to be every day in your art. It's a total privilege. It was given to me. I know my mother was a nurse, and she died pretty young, but my mother said she went to pick me up her first day of school. I think it was 6 in England. I was in England till I was 10. And she, the teacher said, you've got a really artistic daughter. On the first day she said that. I don't know what I'd done. And my mum was surprised. She didn't know I was artistic. And she said, well, what can I do for her? What should I do then? And she said, just avail her to any materials you can find. Just whatever just have pens and paper, crayons, just avail her of the materials. Don't do anything else. And that's been great advice. Yeah, so it's been. And she was very proud. She was very supportive. She was the sort of mum. When I was growing up as a little girl, I'd stand up to help her do the dishes after dinner. She cooked all the dinner. I'd say, I'll do the dishes, Mum. And she said, no, you sit and do your art. And she said, I can't draw a straight line. That was her famous word. I can't draw a straight line. I'll do the dishes. You just do your art. Yeah. So she was very supportive in that sort of way. Yeah. So I was very lucky. I always think I'm lucky. We're lucky to be here.